Well, hello there. So people want to talk about breaking the silence. I want to talk about the consequences which you might face if you do so. Freedom of speech. What the hell does it mean? So let's finish up with the basics first. According to Oxford Dictionary, freedom of speech is a power of right to express one's opinion without any kind of restrictions, legal penalties, or other kind of censorships. And now you might be like, Polina, why do we need to hear about that? Freedom of speech is so basic, we don't live in Soviet Union anymore, no one is going to prison for telling a political joke. Not this way sometimes. So I personally started to worry about freedom of speech in the year of 2016 it was. The Russian side of this auditorium might remember the guy named Mark Mitchin, or Ruslan Sokolovsky. Ruslan Sokolovsky is a Russian YouTuber from St. Petersburg who was condemned for blasphemy and hate speech. And when I say that, I don't really mean that he ran into the church naked, screaming at poor grandmas. No, Ruslan Sokolovsky actually played Pokemon Go in church. You didn't misheard me. The guy got condemned for playing Pokemon Go in church. Well, it's not that simple. Ruslan is not the best person to defend. His whole YouTube channel is full of rude atheistic content. And he actually went to the church not for the purpose of actually catching a Charizard or something. He actually wanted to prove the, I'm quoting, stupidity of the law. So that's when your opinions might start to split. On one hand, he's not really the best person to defend. On the other hand, should someone sit in prison for not being the best person? Well, obviously no. So for the whole year of 2016, Ruslan Sokolovsky was shifting in between of house arrest and courts. Well, his lawyers were quite good, I can't argue, so no wonder that some really weird accusations came into play. For example, when police was searching through all of his apartments, they found a spy pen. What is weird about spy pen? When according to Russian Federation Criminal Code, Article 138.1, they're illegal in Russia. So I will quote right now, any devices which are meant to secretly receive information are illegal in Russia. So Ruslan Sokolovsky was condemned by 2.5 years in prison. 2.5 years. But wait for it. The pinnacle of justice. Not only he is sitting in prison now, he also got his name into the official terrorist list of Russia. Ruslan Sokolovsky, the guy who was telling nonsense of YouTube, is now in the same list with ISIL main activists. Well, you might be like, Polina, terrorist list, sounds terrible. How terrible is it? Very. You can no longer receive any official salary. All of your internet banking accounts are blocked. And what is even worse, you can no longer fill in any kind of documents. Well, the official salary or the maximum amount of money you can ever get in a month is 10,000 rubles. 10,000 rubles. Well, 10,000 sounds big, not when it is in rubles. It's somewhere according $150. You cannot afford living on such money. To conclude it all in a funny way, he was not only accused on hate speech and playing Pokemon Go in church, he was also accused of comparing Jesus Christ to a zombie and including him into official Japanese bestiary, which is funny and sounds like nonsense, but this is official thing which was said by judge into court. The next guy, the guy I was messing his name up with, is Mark Mitchin. You might all know his name because that is the guy who was filming his pug and making Nazi out of it. Well, long story short, Mark Mitchin has a girlfriend. His girlfriend likes his pug. So she's thinking he's cute and he decides to play a prank on her. So he's like, I want to make a Nazi out of it. And he taught it to jump every time he said burn the Jews, and he taught it to raise its right paw every time he said Sieg Heil. That sounds offensive. But if you look at the context of the whole thing, it is kind of clear that it meant to be a joke. Obviously, even now you can still find people really angry with red faces telling that Mark Mitchin, it's all his fault, he should sit in prison, it's hate crime, no place for him in Scotland. Was it really a hate crime? Well, if you ask my opinion, at first it was much more reasonable to make this joke with a German Shepherd. Secondly, if you look deeper into the art of comedy, all of the jokes are based on the unexpected violation of some kind of taboo. So no wonder sometimes those taboos are insults. What I want you to do right now is close your eyes. I see you people with not closed eyes. And remember the last joke that you've heard and genuinely just found it funny. Now open your eyes and ask yourself if it could offend someone. If it couldn't, you're probably a saint, or you laugh at word jokes, which is pretty weird. If it could offend someone, you're a normal human being. People tend to laugh at things like aging, wives, maybe people of certain nations, and it is offensive, but in the same time it's basic and normal. So, by the end of it all, Mark Mitchen got only fined by $800, which is quite good because unless this whole situation got into the lights of faces of media, comedians, and other people, if it wasn't that famous, he would get into prison for 2 years. Thankfully, he didn't. To conclude, there are basically 3 laws which are making your freedom of speech not as free as it should be. I will start with the first one, most controversial one, blasphemy law. Blasphemy law is really tricky. So it's present in the countries like Russia, Switzerland, Germany, Greece, and it's originally made to protect places of worships and feelings of religious people. What is also bad about it is that it's often also used to ban books, TV series, movies, just because it offends someone in some way. The thing about such laws, it's really difficult to determine how deeply someone got offended. You can't be like, Floria is offended on $1,000, but oh my God, Paul is so offended, this guy needs to sit 2 years of his life in prison. So it gets philosophical in some cases. And laws shouldn't be philosophical. In fact, laws should be anything but philosophical. So, also, what is really weird is that in the countries in which those laws aren't well formulated, you can often find weird situations like, for example, religious person got into a fight with an atheist. So one says, God exists, punches him back. Another says, God doesn't, and punches also him. So they both go to police. They're like, oh, they're both guilty, but the guy who has blasphemy law on his side has more laws to protect him, even though they are both guilty. That gets weird. So sometimes you might think that God didn't create Earth, but circus. So the second law I want to talk about, my favorite law, is hate speech. I love hate speech. So the weird thing about hate speech is that the line between opinion and agitation is sometimes so thin, people don't really tend to see it. So, just for a second, imagine you're homophobic. Some of you don't even have to imagine, but imagine you're homophobic. And you're on a really tolerant party, but you don't know about that yet. So someone comes up to you just casually and being like, what's your opinion on LGBT community? What should you do? Lie about that? So you tell them the truth. Obviously, people are getting angry because in eyes of other people, you are incorrect. Should you get fined for it? No, it's your opinion. The different thing would be if you stood in the middle of the room with a huge poster that all gays should be straightened by God, pointing your finger into everyone who doesn't agree and pressing on them to do so. Because that is the difference between opinion and agitation. Opinion is just something you usually keep to yourself. And agitation is when you press on people for action. And that is something government has a right to punish you for. The third law didn't get passed 2 weeks ago. So my speech is kind of outdated. But I want to talk about you, I want to talk to you about how things didn't get passed. So this law is Article 13 of European Union, aka meme ban. You might have heard about it. So what did they want to do? So they wanted all internet providers to install a special software which would kind of go through all the content and find pirated or copyrighted things. So like YouTube gameplays or any kind of funny Oblivion compilations, whatever you watch, if they see something is pirated or copyrighted, it gets deleted automatically. So why often people call it meme ban? So because memes are often based on copyrighted material. And thanks God, people who worry about memes notice that, because otherwise we would all not use pirated websites. And I see your innocent faces, downloaded games from torrent, not paying for music you listen to, watching Netflix series while not even being subscribed on Netflix. We all do that. I mean, if you ask an ordinary Ukrainian person, they wouldn't even know it's a crime. It's so usual. So, thank God law didn't get passed. Even though some deputies tried to argue that memes as caricatures, as jokes would be protected, you don't really want to trust something like memes into the hands of people over 50 sitting in parliament. So, so that's basically it. We are free of Article 13. To conclude my whole speech, I believe that internet is a free space, and it should be left free. It's a space for everyone to share their opinions and jokes without thankfully being punished for that. I think that we are living into the developed society which is able to distinguish those jokes from crimes, opinions from agitations. Thank you, and if you find me for what I say, that would be ironical.